This is a demonstration of the Kramer Master Tape plugin from Waves. This plugin is available as an individual product or also part of the Kramer Tape, Tubes, and Transistor bundle. Let me begin with the technical specifications for this plugin. This software is PC and Mac compatible. The plugin formats that are supported are TDM, RTAS, AudioSuite, VST, and AU. There are two versions of the plugin included. One is for mono tracks, the other is for stereo tracks. You can use this plugin on audio that's been recorded with a sampling rate up to 96 kilohertz with a bit depth up to 24 bits. Now let me talk about the features and controls of the plugin. This plugin is a digital simulation of what happens to audio when it's been recorded to tape. The controls and features allow you to manipulate the signal going through the plugin so that you can impose different aspects of how a tape processes signal that's been recorded to it. First, let me talk about the input and output level controls. You use these level controls to change how the amplitude of the signal that's going through the plugin. You can, with the record level, change the input level of the signal coming into the plugin, and the playback level is to control the signal as it's leaving the plugin. One thing that is a characteristic that tape is known for is that it imposes some kind of analog compression, analog glue, analog saturation on signals that go through it. Using the input or record level, you can increase the level going onto the tape, and at some point the tape will actually start to compress or limit the signal that's going through. However, you can also turn that level down so that the tape is doing less compression. Initially, the plugin is set up with these controls linked so that when you turn up or down the input level or the output one, it adjusts and compensates for the other one equally but in the opposite way. You can also click off the link button and change these independently. This is nice. For instance, if you find a setting that passes the signal through the plugin at a particular level, and then what you can do is turn this up to maybe increase the saturation or glue that's going on internally in the plugin, or you can back it off. Going along with this is the Flux Control right here. Now, the thing about Flux for tape is flux was the magnetic energy it's used to describe the magnetic energy that's being recorded onto the tape. What this energy does is the more energy that's recorded to the tape, the more it's going to saturate or compress or distort, and that's what the tape the character that it's known for. So you can increase the flux to increase that kind of compression, or you can back it off. You can use this together with the record level. So typically, when you're recording to tape, you would want your signal to be peaking right around -1 or 0. Of course, if you increase it more, you're going to be maybe doing some kind of clipping. However, you can also do that same sort of thing in a different way by increasing the flux, which is simulating an increase in magnetic energy that's recorded to the tape. Next, I want to talk about these switches up at the top. So there's one that controls the tape speed, or the simulation of tape speed. With the 7.5 inches per second setting, you're going to see a decrease in the high frequency signals that go through the plugin and an increase in the low frequency signals. With the 15 inches per second, it's the opposite. Maybe a little bit of a decrease in the low frequencies and an increase in the high frequencies. Tape bias is something that again kind of changes the frequency response of the signals that pass through this plugin. Bias was a high frequency signal that was included and recorded onto tape above the frequency range that humans can hear, but it was used because on tape, the problem was the magnetic oxide particles would need to be polarized. And you use this bias signal to do that. It couldn't be perceived by humans, but it did the job on the tape to effectively polarize the oxide particles. Again, nominal, it's a little bit smoother high end. With the over biased, you're going to increase the the top end a little bit. So those are things you can just play around with the signal going through it. Over here, there's a simulated wow and flutter control. What happens with tape is that the reels, as they're turning, would have some variation in how fast they turned. And what that does to the audio, these are very slight variations. They would impose what was perceived to be kind of some kind of wow and flutter as the description of what it sounds like. So you can increase this, or you can also decrease it if you don't want that to sound that way. It's one aspect of tapes that give it more of a realistic feel or analog feel to it. The other one I have over here to go along with it is the noise. So tape noise is something that was usually not desirable about tape. However, it's something that can be used to increase the realism of a simulation of tape. So you can increase it by different levels to impose some noise floor on your signal that makes it be perceived like it's coming from tape, an actual analog tape. Up here are controls for a built-in tape delay section. So that's another thing tape was used for. It was a way to include some kind of delay or echo to your signal. You can control the delay time either based on your 15 inches per second or 7.5 inches per second, or you can actually increase it based on milliseconds up to 500 milliseconds, or even just down as low as 1 millisecond. You have the feedback, so that's the number of repeats that go on, or you can just use a slap delay and then increase the level of that single repeat of the signal. Then you have a control to change the frequency response of the delays. So this is separate from the signal going through the tape. These are just the echoes that you're going to be processing by decreasing the high frequencies by using a low pass filter. Next, let me play this back and show you what it sounds like. It's a very subtle effect, but it just does a little bit of glue to the signal. Here's some drums, a multi-track drum session. I'll bypass it. Just increasing the low end a little bit and giving it a little bit of glue. Rolling off the high end just a little bit too. I just want to show you one example of how you can increase the kind of saturation, maybe for less of a subtle effect, but actually more of a audible effect. So here's a kick drum sound. I'm going to increase the flux. Now it's distorting much more, as if I've recorded the signal with higher energy onto the tape. You'll see that on my input and output meters, when I change the flux, it's still the same, it's just more distortion. You can add more or less wow and flutter, and add some tape noise. So that's the Kramer tape. The features are simple, it's intuitive, easy to use, just takes a little bit of playing around with. It's a subtle effect, but what it can do is take your sterile, digital sounding tracks and give them a better analog character or analog feel to them.